The Lullaby of Hollowheart Manor, Nightmare Edition. There are places that exist only in memory, or perhaps in nightmares, but the world refuses to acknowledge them. Hollowheart was such a place. It was not marked on any map, yet every so often someone stumbled upon it. Only those who were meant to see it ever did. Hollowheart Manor, a towering mansion at the edge of the town, seemed to exist in a space suspended between life and death, a house that watched, waited, and remembered. Jessica Hale did not remember Hollowheart Manor at first. She did not remember the crumbling orphanage, the fire, the children, or the lullaby. But when she arrived, after a narrow bus ride that seemed to pass through a corridor of silence and shadow, memories began clawing their way back, sharp and unyielding. The bus had been almost empty. Its interior smelled of damp fabric, old vinyl, and something faintly metallic, like rusted blood. Jessica had been the only passenger. The other seats were unoccupied, yet shadows lingered where she could not see clearly, moving in the reflection of the fogged windows. The driver, a thin man with hollowed cheeks, had not spoken once. His pale eyes met hers through the rearview mirror, unblinking, unnervingly fixed, and yet he seemed to see beyond her, straight into her soul. The road stretched endlessly, winding through dense fog and skeletal trees. Their blackened branches curled over the road like cathedral arches, knotted fingers waiting. The silence pressed against her ears, broken only by the occasional creak of the bus and the faint hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Time seemed meaningless here, as if the road itself had paused, waiting for her. When the bus finally stopped at the edge of the town, the driver's lips moved, almost soundless. "No map shows a place that doesn't want to be found," he whispered, the words sliding into her mind like ice. Then he tilted his head toward the road ahead, returning his gaze to the fog. Jessica stepped off the bus, her boots crunching gravel that was too cold, too heavy, as though the earth itself pressed down on her. The road ahead twisted into the mist, flanked by blackened trees that seemed to lean closer with every step. The air smelled of charred roses and iron, sharp and metallic. Her phone had lost signal miles ago. She was alone, utterly alone, yet she felt eyes following her, watching her, waiting. Hollowheart Manor appeared through the mist like a waking nightmare. Jagged stone walls rose like claws, covered in ivy that pulsed faintly in the dim light. The windows, tall and narrow, reflected nothing yet seemed to follow her approach. The iron gates opened slowly, with a creak like fingernails dragging across bone. Rusted letters spelled a name that stabbed at her memory. Hallowell Orphanage, closed since 1983. Her stomach twisted violently. Memories she had buried for decades pressed at her skull. The laughter, the screams, the fire, the lullaby. She had survived, but at what cost? The front door opened before her hand reached the handle. A woman stood there, impossibly thin, her skin pale, her gray eyes like cold mirrors. Her smile did not reach her eyes. "You're late," the woman said softly, her voice carried not by air but by shadow. Were you expecting me?" Jessica stammered, a shiver crawling up her spine. "My dear," the woman said, tilting her head in amusement, "Hollowheart waits for everyone. but only a few ever arrive. Before Jessica could ask more, the woman vanished into the house, leaving the door open. Hesitantly, Jessica stepped inside. The interior was suffused with a dim, unnatural glow, as if the walls themselves exhaled light. Dust motes floated like tiny phantoms. The furniture was antique, perfectly preserved, though coated in a layer of dust that smelled faintly of wax and decay. Every step she took made the floor groan, yet it felt as though the house breathed with her, pulsing under her feet. Down the long hallway, portraits lined the walls. Groups of children, their faces smudged or erased, stared back at her with nothing but hollow emptiness. Yet one figure remained, a girl with dark hair, eyes too old for her face, hauntingly familiar. Jessica's blood ran cold. She knew that girl. She was that girl. Her legs moved before her mind could react. She had known this place once, long ago. She had been 6, a child in a house that promised care but delivered terror. The fire had supposedly claimed the other children, but she had survived. She had sung the lullaby to stay calm, to survive. A faint melody began to drift through the hallway. Soft, almost imperceptible. A lullaby. She did not consciously remember it, yet something deep within her stirred. Her stomach lurched. The house was singing it, calling it back. Without thinking, she hummed along. The walls vibrated faintly in response. At the end of the hall was a door she did not remember seeing. Something compelled her to open it. The room beyond was the dormitory, preserved as if time had frozen it. Dust lay thick, sunlight from cracked windows spilling across yellowed curtains. 4 bunk beds lined the walls. On the far bed, her name was carved repeatedly. Jessica Hale, Jessie H., J. Hale, J. H. Beneath the carvings were music notes, her lullaby etched in wood. Memories flooded her. The heat, the cries, the smell of smoke, the children's faces. She had sung to herself, but not to soothe. She had sung to keep the fire at bay, to contain something far worse than flame. From the shadows behind the beds came the sound of breathing. 7 children sat there, silent, their faces blurred, except one, a girl with long, dark hair, her eyelids stitched closed in precise rows. She smiled at Jessica. "Did you bring the song back?" the girl whispered. Jessica's throat tightened. I don't remember," she admitted. "You don't have to. We do," the girl said. The children began humming. Her lullaby, but alive, pulsing, a thing that pressed against her ribcage. It was not comforting. It was a summons. Then the fire returned. Not smoke, not flames, but essence. Halloween night, 1983, came rushing back. Shadows that moved with intent, screams that were not screams, heat that did not burn. She remembered hiding under a bed, clutching a blanket, humming to keep the others quiet, to survive. The caretaker appeared, gray-eyed, unblinking. "You were always one of us," she said softly. "You survived because you carried the song." Jessica's mind fractured. What are they? The hum grew louder, a single hypnotic chorus. We are what you left behind, whispered the stitched-eyed girl. We waited, we learned, we became the house. Walls pulsed, mirrors multiplied her image, shadows stretched, elongating into small versions of herself. The line between past and present dissolved. Her body moved, compelled, up the stairs to the attic. Each step groaned under her weight. In the attic, the rocking chair swayed. The lullaby swelled, filling the room, wrapping around her, binding her. Sing, whispered every voice at once. The caretaker, the children, the house. Her voice rose, trembling, then strong. The house joined her. The lullaby became more than memory. It was life, terror, and death intertwined. She remembered the fire, the children, the night she left, the long years of forgetting. She had never left. The rocking chair stilled. The lullaby slowed. She understood. The children had not waited for her survival. They had waited for her return. And now, there was no leaving. Years later, Halloween came again. A young couple drove down a deserted forest road, the GPS flickering and twisting. A house glowed softly through the mist. Children laughed inside. A lullaby drifted through the trees. The wife whispered, entranced, "It feels familiar." The husband nodded. "It's beautiful, safe." The front door opened before them. A pale woman smiled from the shadows. "Welcome to Hollowheart Manor," she said. "We've been waiting." They stepped inside. The door closed. The house sighed. The lullaby began anew, pressing outward, calling for the next to return. And then, in a mirror across the hall, the wife glimpsed something that made her blood run cold. A reflection of herself, but older, stitched-eyed, smiling in a rocking chair that moved of its own accord. And somewhere in the quiet, Jessica sang, smiling. The couple did not leave. They never would. Hollowheart Manor had found them first.